What's up everybody, this is the 2024 Mitsubishi Outlander Plug-in Hybrid. So about the 2024 Outlander, well there isn't really anything new aside from a new top platinum trim for 2024, which gives you a black and silver combo. This is just a regular SCL premium we're looking at here, but that's really the only change for 2024. But as far as the Outlander in general, this is the third model year for this new generation and the second model year here for the plug-in hybrid version. And I still think the styling looks really cool. I think it really is very bold and really makes a statement up front there. Looks really sleek and futuristic. I especially love the slope you have to that front grille, how it blends up into the hood there. Just gives us more of an angular design than most of the other crossovers these days, which are more blocky and squared off. But it still is, you know, very rugged looking. So I think it's just a really unique kind of look, honestly, in this segment. And, you know, a lot of chrome too, which is something you also don't see too much of these days. But I think it actually works really well, especially here in red. Coming down to the sides, I think another thing that I'm noticing about the Outlander is it's just a little bit larger looking than most of the other compact SUV competitors. And that's part of how this one is able to have a very tiny third row that most of the other competitors in this segment don't offer. But, you know, it's just a really nice look. I like the floating kind of C-pillar thing there with the floating roof kind of design there. This one also has 20-inch wheels here on this top trim that look really nice. And it's also kind of funny, you have these pretty large plug-in hybrid electric vehicle badges here on the sides, and the EV part is especially large, so a lot of people that don't know what this is just assume it's electric because they see that, with plug-in hybrid being a little bit smaller there, but just an interesting choice to have badges that large. Surprisingly, out back, that's where the styling is the most muted. You have some pretty ordinary looking taillights, you know, some small, normal, ordinary badging there. Nothing too special in the back. I mean, it looks good, but compared to the front, it's really, you know, a lot more toned down and, you know, is just a very unoffensive back end, but I think it looks really good nonetheless. And so overall, I think the Outlander, especially up front here, really makes a statement and looks great. But let's start up and go for a drive. The Outlander plug-in hybrid just has the regular little Mitsubishi key. It's a nice small key, which I really appreciate. Fits great in your pocket, but not super fancy or expensive feeling, but totally fine with me. And it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start here. So just leave the key in your pocket, hit the power button, and it turns right on. And if you're curious to hear about the interior in the 2024 Outlander, my wife and I just did a full in-depth interior review on this vehicle, so I'll link that at the end of this video. You can go watch that if you want to hear all our thoughts on this interior. We go through a deep dive of every little component and what everything's like, so definitely check that out if you're curious, but let's hit the road. All right, so setting off here in the Outlander plug-in hybrid. So the first thing you notice about this vehicle, well, I think the first thing that I notice is just how smooth it is and how responsive it is. Everything feels very responsive. You have nice light steering, and so that makes this feel very eager to turn in and change direction. Just the way they tuned everything with that, it just all feels very eager. Throttle response is also nice and eager. It really ramps up quickly with that electric boost and really gives you a powerful punch forward right as soon as you tap into the gas there. The brakes also feel pretty good. Now the blending of the regen braking with the friction brakes isn't the best, but it's not too bad. It's just basically a little touchy. There's a lot of pedal travel, and then once they start to grab, they're a little touchy, and so it's going to take a little bit of a learning curve and a little finesse to be totally smooth with your stops with the Outlander, but I'm sure that's something you can get used to, you know, pretty quickly. It's just something you have to kind of build up a little muscle memory for. But, you know, also, it's so nice and smooth and quiet. So this is based on the same platform as the Nissan Rogue, but especially here for the plug-in hybrid version, I mean, everything has basically been changed aside from the bones underneath. You know, we have a completely unique Mitsubishi engine. We have, you know, the battery pack and all that, which Nissan doesn't even offer a plug-in hybrid Rogue. You know, so you have totally different powertrain. You have, you know, totally different styling, suspension tuning, all that stuff, you know, has been changed. You know, it's a bigger vehicle than the Rogue with, you know, this having a third rail and that not offering one. So it's really, you know, as far as partnerships go with other vehicles, this is probably one of the furthest distance vehicles from the other vehicle it's related to. And I really don't feel any Rogue here whatsoever, aside from the infotainment system, to be totally honest. You know, the way they tuned the suspension is great because, you know, even on some of the rougher roads I was on so far in the past few days here, it's really just really well set up to just soak everything up really nicely. I think it's actually a little smoother of a ride than the RAV4 Prime. It just feels really nice. You also have great visibility here in the Outlander. You have a great view forward, nice thin A-pillars here, mirrors off onto the doors, and great view out of the back as well. And so really easy as far as that goes. You also have lots of standard safety tech. Blind spot monitoring is standard, rear cross traffic alert, automatic emergency braking, even adaptive cruise control is standard on everything except the base one. Anyway, there's a bunch of different drive modes here. I'm going to go and put it up into the power mode here first to do an acceleration, and we will see how it does. And here we go. All right, it's kicked on the gas engine. The gas engine was running previously, so it's not a cold engine. But man, yeah, it really gets up and moves nicely. Now, whenever I leaned onto the brakes, it did feel like it kind of dives forwards and backwards a little bit. It's not quite as tight with its body control compared to a RAV4 Prime, which is the benchmark in this segment, so I'm going to be referencing that vehicle a lot. But good amount of power. Now, not as much power as the RAV4 Prime and even the plug-in hybrid compact SUVs from Hyundai and Kia, but does 248 horsepower, 332 pound-feet of torque though, which is, I believe, the top torque figure for any of these vehicles in this segment that this competes with for plug-in hybrids. And so it amounts to a 6.6 seconds 0 to 60 time, which is plenty of punch, and especially, you know, the lower end of that 60 mile per hour time really feels so punchy again with that instant electric jolt. It really feels good. And yeah, I mean, it's a nice amount of punch. I like how it's ramping up so super fast, and so it really feels punchy. And I mean, the front end lifts up because it, you know, is kind of soft with the suspension setup, but I really like it. So by the way, as far as the engine component goes, it has a 2.4 liter naturally aspirated Atkinson cycle engine, and so that has 131 horsepower on its own, and then that pairs up with 3 different electric motors, 1 in the rear and 2 more in the front, and that gives you that total horsepower and torque output that you have. So, you know, I mean, it's just a good thing that you have a naturally aspirated engine. Is also, it all runs through like a variable transmission, so there's no actual physical gears or anything. So that's kind of similar to the RAV4 Prime, which uses a similar kind of CVT-esque kind of setup. But that is a stark difference from the Hyundai and the Kia, which use an actual 6-speed automatic transmission and a turbo 4-cylinder. So those feel a little more disconnected, where you feel the electric jolt, and then you feel it go into the right gear, and then you feel the boost come on. It's a very multi-step process with acceleration in the Hyundai and the Kia. This is smoother and feels closer to the RAV4 Prime, just a little less punchy, but still really good. But anyway, we're coming to some corners here they always take, and let's see how the Outlander plug-in hybrid handles. Wow. So you know, one thing that I love is Mitsubishi really does a good job with this is the super all-wheel control, all-wheel drive system. It's a torque vectoring kind of system, and you can really tell that there are still a few people left that were in the development for the Mitsubishi Evo with the way this changes direction, because honestly, the way that it feels with it, like, really ramps up mid-corner and really makes itself feel very neutral, and that's something I remember from the old Evos back in the day. And it just, you know, it's great to see that some of that stuff has, you know, trickled down, and that you know, you feel a little bit of that awesome Mitsubishi engineering heritage still in this vehicle, and it handles fantastically well. Honestly, I think that it actually feels a little sportier than the RAV4 Prime, and honestly, you know, I would like a little more feel through the steering wheel to really round out the experience, but I think honestly, to me, this is the most sure-footed and sportiest handling of the plug-in hybrid crossovers that this competes with. And by the way, tires, it's got 255 wide tires all around here on these 20-inch wheels at least, and so that's a good amount of grip as well. And so it's impressive. We go, yeah, I mean, it feels really, it's so neutral. They do a really good job with that rear electric motor of really trying to overdrive itself to, again, just make this feel so sporty. And I don't know, as an enthusiast, like, I'm really enjoying taking this around corners, which, I mean, it was something I was a little skeptical about, because these aren't light, by the way. These weigh roughly like 700 pounds heavier than a regular Outlander, and so these are, I believe, around 4750 for the curb weight. I mean, that's just coming down to the battery just being so heavy. You know, that's going to be the main culprit here. But even though, you know, the nose lifts up and it dives a little bit under braking, you know, it's really well controlled for these side-to-side motions. I mean, you have a little bit of, you know, roll there, but it's very mild. And you know, I mean, I think the body motions, it does move around a little bit more than the RAV4, but because of the way that it's just so eager to, you know, change direction, I think that's why I prefer the way this handles a little bit over that RAV4 Prime. Both are very good, but I think I actually do prefer this a little bit. But the big thing here is this is a plug-in hybrid, so let's talk about the electrical stuff. So it runs a 16.8 kilowatt hour usable battery, and that amounts to 38 miles of electric range is what Mitsubishi quotes here, and what the EPA quotes. And so it's you know, a good amount of range. Now, the thing about the electric, so I'm back into the normal mode here. There is a dedicated EV mode, but whenever you are in just the regular normal mode here, it's still a fairly low threshold. If I go beyond half throttle, it's going to kick on the gas engine every time. So it still, to me, doesn't feel like the electric motors are quite as strong as the RAV4 Prime. There's not as much ability to, drive this as a pure EV. At least as long as you want decent punch, it's going to have to dip into that gas engine a little bit more. So I think the RAV4 Prime is still my favorite as far as the electric propulsion goes. This is more closely feeling to the Hyundai and the Kia, which also made it actually really hard for me to do like a pure EV range test whenever I was in the regular mode. It, always was kicking on the gas engine, so it's kind of hard to, judge, am I, getting exactly the rated range here, because it was always kicking on the gas engine off and on. And you'll even see in my driving here so far, it's been saying I've been doing roughly 40 to 45% of the driving in EV mode, even though I've been in the normal mode. I've had a charge and I've been trying to do electric driving, but it's only been really doing it less than half the time. So that'll come down to your driving style and your location and a bunch of other factors. But we can try out this EV mode here. There's also a save mode and a charge mode, so you can charge the battery with the gas engine. You can save the electric range if you want to for a certain instance. But I'm just in the EV mode here. I'm trying to climb this hill. Okay, so there's a kick down switch on the gas pedal, and if you push through that, then it will still kick on the gas engine. But otherwise, it is, you can go basically full throttle. It'll just sit there and use the max amount of electric juice that it can. And it's, it's not bad, but yeah, it's definitely, we will try a highway merge here in this electric mode and just see. But to me, it doesn't feel quite as strong as the Toyota, which I think is still, the best. And as far as this battery, whenever it gets depleted, by the way, recharge times here, it says 16 hours to do a full recharge from 0 to 100% on a regular 120 volt, outlet in your house. But it was quoting me 18 and a half hours whenever I plugged it in with the regular, level 1 charger that we have at home. And I was able to leave it on the charger for like 17 and a half hours, and it was almost 100%, but it wasn't quite there. So 16 hours might be a little bit optimistic there on that level 1. So if you don't spend a lot of time at home at night, you might not be able to keep up with the charging, at least as far as level 1 goes. Level 2, it'll do a full recharge in I think 6.5 hours, they said. So that could definitely be the better way to go, especially if you're out late and leaving early in the morning and still want to use all that electrical range. And if for some reason you want to do a fast charge in the Outlander, it actually will do CHAdeMO fast charging, which is the plug that basically only the Nissan Leaf uses anymore. And with the gas engine, there's no reason to stop at a fast charger. But if you wanted to, for whatever reason, it'll do a 10% to 80% charge in 38 minutes, which is also pretty slow. And again, unless you're at a very low traffic charger where you don't feel bad hogging a charging plug, it's just going to be silly to stop at a DC fast charger. And it's also going to be hard to find one with a CHAdeMO plug these days. But you have that option if that's something that you're interested in. But anyway, highway merging here. I just kicked down the kick down switch. Let's wait for the gas engine to turn back off. And all right, so yeah, I'm like, going up like 57, 58, 59, 60. It's doing it, decently well. And I think for most people, if you're not in a giant hurry, you can, merge onto the highway in electric mode totally fine, and it will work. But I think the bottom line is the Toyota still is the stronger electric driver, and that one really focuses on just really draining that battery first and foremost, even in the normal mode, and then it will, give you that gas engine kick on. By the way, when the gas engine does kick on, if it's not been warmed up yet, the first time it does kick on, it will stay on regardless of what you're doing, just to give it a normal warm up, so that engine's not being abused. And then once it's up to a normal operating temp, then it will turn itself back off and let you go back into that electric mode if you want. But I mean, we're out here on the highway now, and just doing some manual driving here. I'm able to do light passing and maintain highway speeds for sure behind traffic and stuff, no problem. So it's really good with that. Also, if you want to get more involved in the electric driving experience, you do have regen paddles here. There's 5 different levels, as well as a B mode on the shifter here, which will give you a slight one pedal mode. It's not quite one pedal, but close. But the regen paddles are pretty good, but they're really tightly close together as far as the ratios for the regen. So I usually was going down 2 or 3 before it was giving me more of a ramp up in the regen like I was expecting. But that is nice if you're coasting down a hill and want to play with it. It's nice to have that. But we're going to go ahead and turn on the adaptive cruise control system here. and it does have, you know, lane keep assist function as well, and so we have everything I think on here, and yeah, it's doing a little bit of a steering assist here, and yeah, it's pretty straightforward here with you know, just setting the speed here. And all right, so it's pretty touchy. I was just kind of letting my hands rest on the wheel, but I wasn't giving it any torque on the wheel, so it was like, hey, put your hands back on the wheel. So it definitely wants to make sure your hands are on the wheel. But it handled that corner totally fine. It's doing confident lane centering here. It's not pogoing around. It's not feeling sketchy or anything. And I will test this some more throughout the next few days here. But so far, it's a really good system. I think, honestly, in first impression, feels better than the highway drive assist system that Hyundai and Kia have, which is a little sketchier with its lane keep assist in my experience, at least. Lots of others love that system, but for me, it's never been super good. Other things, though, on the highway here, you know, I mean, this highway's been pretty recently repaved, so it's nice and smooth, but pretty quiet and serene, and a really nice highway cruiser. You can just, you know, put your music on, put your massage seat on, and just have a nice relaxing cruise if you want. So anyway, but that's all of my first impressions here in the Outlander plug-in hybrid. But thanks to Mitsubishi, I will have this vehicle for an entire week, so I'm going to drive all over the place and do a little more electric driving, a little more gas driving here, and then I'll come back and give you guys my final real world fuel efficiency and what I was able to kind of get as far as range numbers, as well as my thoughts on the pricing, how it compares to the competition, and anything else that I noticed here during my week of driving. All right, so I've been driving the Outlander plug-in hybrid for a few more days here now, and I don't know, I really have fallen in love with the Outlander here. It is so much better than I was expecting, and it really has just jumped to the top of the list, and really it's now tied with the RAV4 Prime in my mind. There's a couple differentiators like I alluded to earlier, but more extended impressions now driving it a few more days. One thing I can say is this certainly feels a little slow at times, and that is something I never said about the RAV4 Prime. That is stronger. It's got stronger electric motors. It's got more power. It's more horsepower. It just feels better to drive from a straight line standpoint, and there are a few times where driving this I was like, oh, this kind of feels slow, and you know, I didn't love that, but I prefer the handling of this over the RAV4 Prime. So it's really this dilemma in my mind. I wish that I could have this handling with the power of the RAV4 Prime. That would be like the perfect plug-in hybrid compact crossover, in my opinion. But you know, it just was really good. I still just love the handling. I love just every time I hopped in this vehicle and sat down. Maybe it's just my body type, but this seat is like perfectly shaped for at least my body type, that it is like extremely comfortable, not even mentioning the massage, which is a nice touch, and everything else, but it's just like perfectly contoured for at least my back, and I hope other people's backs as well. But I just, every time I hopped in this, I was like, it was like my favorite, you know, armchair at home. It's just like that good. I love just passing time in these seats, to be totally honest. Another thing that's great is this Bose stereo. I mean, it's a Bose stereo, so I guess I shouldn't have had low expectations, but I just didn't know, you know, this is I think the first time there's been a Bose stereo in a Mitsubishi. It's a really good sounding stereo. I mean, again, we're not talking luxury car good or anything, but it's for mainstream vehicles, it's really, really good. I think it certainly sounds better like the JBL stereo you get in the top versions of the RAV4 Prime and stuff. And just another real impressive thing. Now, the one little letdown I can say, in addition to the fact that, again, it feels slow at times, is this infotainment system, which is Nissan based. And it's so funny how, like, the one thing that's most heavily Nissan inspired is the one thing that's actually the biggest letdown of this interior, at least, and that is the fact that this is just kind of slow. The CarPlay actually crashed once on me and wouldn't respond and wouldn't open up until I did a key cycle. Even with it baked in Nissan menus, it's just kind of slow to swipe and everything. Thankfully, again, CarPlay works most of the time, and at least me personally, I'm just sitting in CarPlay the whole time anyway. So, you know, the complaints with the infotainment system are not deal breakers, and it's something I don't encounter super often. But, you know, it's just one of the worst infotainment systems, I think, in this segment, and I don't love it, although it is nice it has wireless smartphone integration, because the Hyundai and the Kia still don't have that here. So, you know, it's not all bad, but just wish that was a little bit better. But that's really my only other complaint. Now, as far as the electric driving, I did do, you know, more electric driving in that EV mode, and the EV mode is certainly good enough if you're not in a hurry. But again, I wish that the electric motors had a little more oomph. And, you know, there's been rumors of a Rally Art version, which could potentially do more horsepower. That could really solve it. I don't know if that would improve the electric motors or the gas motor or both, But, you know, I think this with a little more power could really make it a lot better. You know, but as far as, you know, the range, again, I wasn't able to do an exact test because it kept kicking on the gas engine, even though I was trying to not kick it on. But it was telling me 44 miles of range whenever I first started off. That dropped pretty quickly. You know, I think the 38-mile range that's officially stated at is probably pretty accurate. But, you know, again, your mileage will vary as far as all that goes. Now, as far as the actual numbers here, I've driven this vehicle 104 miles here. And my, first off, my MPGe, it's calling it MPG, but it's also factoring in the electric driving. I'm getting a 40.6 MPG rating, and then it's doing 2.7 miles per kilowatt hour whenever it was in that electric mode, for those who are curious about that efficiency, which that efficiency is okay. That's actually slightly better than even some dedicated EVs that are heavier and bigger and more powerful, but I think for a plug-in hybrid, that's pretty decent. And then, you know, the 40.6 MPG is a little low. I think these are rated at 56 MPGe combined, and I haven't burned through a whole tank of gas or anything yet. I mean, you have a lot of range here, so I'm not even, I'm actually still above 3/4 of a tank here after 105 miles of driving. But, you know, they'll just have to see, you know, as I drove more, if that improved or not. Typically, in my kind of driving, I do 1 to 2 MPG less than the city rating. Now, as far as just straight regular MPG, when you're not using the electric assistance, it's rated at 26 MPG. But I only did that one full recharge, and that was it. So obviously, you know, 40.5 MPG is certainly less than the 64 MPGe, again, that this is claiming. But again, I wasn't charging every night and stuff. So I mean, your mileage is going to vary, your efficiency will vary depending on how much you plug it in and charge it, and the kind of driving you do and stuff. So it's really hard to judge the efficiency, but, you know, still getting over 40 MPG with one charge, and otherwise just been using the gas here. I mean, I'm pretty happy that you're getting 40 MPG in something like this with electric help, but still. And the one other thing I wanted to mention is that I did get to do more highway driving here this week, and so I was able to test out the adaptive cruise control system, and it still worked great. The lane keep assist was still super good, and it's always just really well done. And Nissan system has also been very good, so I guess, you know, probably share some tech with that, I'm assuming. You know, so I was just really happy with that. And so just like everything, every time I just drove this, every time I was living with it, I just really liked it. The last couple things I mentioned here are the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as pricing goes, these start at $41,685, and then this one, as tested, again, being pretty much fully loaded, again, aside from that new platinum trim, but pretty much a fully loaded one with all these options. This one comes out to just under $52,000. And at that price point, again, it's really evenly matched with the RAV4 Prime, which in its fully loaded version with the option package for the premium package that it has, which has basically all the same tech that this has, aside from the massage seats and, you know, maybe 1 or 2 other things, but those are right $52,000 as well. And, you know, the RAV4 Prime, the nice thing about that is that you have the extra power, you have the extra range. It's rated, I believe, 42 miles of electric range, and again, the electric motors are strong enough that you can actually, you know, rely on that, and truly is an electric RAV4 until that battery is drained, because it is really so usable with those electric motors. And that is the key advantage that it has over this. Now, this does have the option, this has, you know, the little third row, which, again, the usability is debatable, but it's there. And then, you know, the quilting and, you know, all the extra padding and stuff. It's just a classier interior than the more rugged approach the RAV4 takes. And so that part will come down to personal preference. It's a little tough to justify, you know, the price of this, considering that is better, but I get, like I said, this also handles a little bit better. So it'll come down to your personal preferences there. But the one big thing about the RAV4 Prime is its availability. And typically I don't mention deals and incentives and availability, because that'll vary for everyone depending on where you're at and stuff. And that is still true in this case as well. But the thing with the RAV4 Prime is that it's now in its, I believe, third or fourth model year here, and I think it's third model year, but it is still like impossible to find on dealer lots, at least around me, and from what I've heard a lot of other places, it's still really hard to get a RAV4 Prime even 3 years later here, which is kind of crazy. And the few that are out there, some of them are still getting marked up, where there's a long wait before you can actually get one, especially at a decent price. And so, you know, it's almost one of these things where if you can't get one, then what's the point? And, you know, to compare, the Mitsubishi Outlander, just in a 50-mile radius, it's showing 23 of these in stock. And on top of that, Mitsubishi, because they're Mitsubishi, I guess, there's a bunch of incentives. They're offering discounts. A lot of them aren't even, you know, going for sticker price. And then there's lease incentives and all kinds of other stuff. So, you know, that makes it a lot more compelling that, yes, you have less power, but if you know, test drive one of these and you're like, okay, I can live with that amount of power, I can live with, you the weaker electric motors and slightly lesser range and all that. I think that is the bottom line, is the fact that you can get this, and you can actually get this probably for less than the RAV4 Prime. Again, coming down to your deal and stuff, so I can't say 100%, but MSRP is a little irrelevant whenever the one is almost impossible to get, and this is plentiful, and therefore most likely will have discounts. So, in reality, whenever you're not just looking on paper and you're looking at what the situation is here, at least in the end of 2023, this makes a much stronger case for itself, because you can actually just roll up to your dealer and buy one today and probably get a good deal on it as well. And for a lot of people that are so tired of the hassle of car buying in the past couple of years, that could be a huge selling perk on its own. This also, one other thing they offer is the 10-year, 100,000 mile warranty that comes on Mitsubishi's. Toyota doesn't offer that. Now, there is a longer battery warranty on the Toyota and all that, but as far as the powertrain, the engine, all that, you have, a longer amount of coverage here in the Mitsubishi, which is another real, key thing for it. So, it's almost like a draw in my mind. I think, on paper, I'd still take the RAV4 Prime, but if, you're in a buying situation where, you're not able to hunt one down across the country, or you're not willing to wait for months or years for a RAV4 Prime, I think this is a great alternative. Good thing, but honestly, in some ways, I like this better than the RAV4 Prime. The other one to briefly mention too is the Tucson Plug-in Hybrid and the Sportage Plug-in Hybrid. I haven't driven the Sportage Plug-in Hybrid, but it's the same powertrain as the Tucson, so I'm going to lump them together. They're both priced around the same. They're starting, a little bit less than this. I think it's around 40,000, and those fully loaded are between like 45 and 46,000. So they do undercut this. They also give you a 10-year, 100,000 mile powertrain warranty and a few more horsepower on paper, but less torque than this has. And that's a similar thing in that, where the electric motors aren't usually strong enough to do strict EV driving and treat it like an EV, and it needs the gas engine to help out a lot more, much like this. So it's pretty comparable, and I mean, there is some value there, because again, even a fully loaded one of those, which has most of the same stuff you get here in this, is comfortably $5,000 cheaper, if not even a little bit more. And those are a little more plentiful than a RAV4 Prime. I've counted in my 50-mile radius, once again, between 10 to 15 of each, the Kia and the Hyundai currently available. So they aren't going to be as plentiful as the Outlander, but they're also not going to be as rare as the RAV4 Prime. Also another great alternative. A little less electric range in that too. I think that those are like only 33 miles of electric range, and again, no third row offered in those or anything. But that's certainly another good competitor, but in my mind, they don't handle as good as this, and this has, I think, a little bit more power. It's also a smoother powertrain delivery with this versus, again, the regular automatic with 6 speeds, the turbo delivery, and the electric. It's just a very tiered power delivery that I don't love in the Hyundai and the Kia, and so I like the way this drives better in every way. And I like the interior in this better. It's plusher, I think, even than the Kia and the Hyundai as well. And they have some bigger screens for the middle here slightly, but like I said, you don't have the wireless smartphone integration and stuff. So anyway, I won't go too much into those two, because to me they're a distant third compared to this and the RAV4 Prime. And between those two, it really is a toss-up, depending on, again, what your situation's like and your availability and your preferences, as far as whether you value the power and the electric thing more than the handling, or vice versa. But I'm really impressed. I didn't expect to walk away from the Outlander here having it be one of my new favorites in the compact SUV class, but it is, and it's right up there, in the same recommendation spot as the RAV4 Prime in my mind, and they just did a really good job. I mean, Mitsubishi, they've really, not had a whole lot in the past few years. Most of the other stuff they offer isn't really competitive, but this one certainly is, and is fantastic. And I really hope that they continue to do more stuff like this, because I really feel like there is hope for Mitsubishi if they can keep putting out stuff like this, because this is top notch with features, top notch as far as competitive pricing, great driving dynamics, great tech. It's a very well done vehicle, so I really hope they can keep this momentum going with their future products. But they're off to a great start with the revitalization of Mitsubishi, in my opinion, after driving the Outlander Plug-in Hybrid here. But anyway, that's all of my thoughts on the Outlander Plug-in Hybrid. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Mitsubishi for providing me here with this Outlander to review for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.